United Cacao has today listed in London on the alternative investment market. It is a cacao plantation company based in Peru. It's the first publicly listed pure-play cacao producer globally and the first publicly listed tropical plantation business in Latin America. The placing is for 5 million shares at 128 pence a piece, raising £6.4 million, giving the company a £23 million market capitalisation. Has the ticker symbol of CHOC. Let's now catch up with the chief executive, the chairman and the founder, Dennis Melker. Dennis, welcome.
Great, thank you.
First of all, congratulations on the listing here in London. Why cacao, first of all? That has to be the question. Why cacao?
Absolutely. Originally, we were in the plantation business in Southeast Asia and also Peru. Whilst being on the ground in Peru, we realized this is a phenomenal opportunity to transform the industry. The crop grows incredibly well in Peru. It's actually the home of cacao. All cacao in the world indigenously is from the Amazonian area. So it grows well, the productivity is excellent, the innovation is there, so we felt it really had to be captured and put into a large-scale format like we're doing now.
What plantations have you got there already? Because I know that you're going to be pumping much of this money you've raised back into the business, aren't you?
Absolutely. Nobody is selling any stock in this offering. All the pre-money shareholders are locked up up to 1 to 2 years. So this is all primary shares being used to further develop the business and take us to be the world's #1 producer.
And the development process, where do you go from here? What have you got already in the bag, okay, and where will you be in a couple of years' time?
We own freehold land in excess of 3,500 hectares. That's perpetual freehold. It's not a lease, it's not a concession. It's about 2/3 the size of Manhattan Island, to give you an idea of size and scale. We have, by next month, over 500 hectares planted. We will be producing our first cacao in the second half of next year. We will hit 1,000 hectares planted by March of next year, so less than 4 months from now, and we'll hit 2,000 hectares planted by December of next year. So this is a very intensive planting project that will be done in short order. In the next 18 months, the entire estate will be fully planted. Our goal is to get 3,250 hectares planted by the second half of 2016.
And this is the product, this
Absolutely.
little pile of beans here. What are you going to be supplying? You're going to be supplying just the beans, or are you going to be producing them into some other sort of form?
The big opportunity is to have the land planted and be a seller of high-quality fermented beans like you have here on the table. This is where the opportunity is for us. We may eventually get into grinding, but there's a lot of competition in grinding. There isn't much competition in what we're doing right now. What's
the competition like for producing these beans in Peru?
Okay, I would say globally, most beans originally are from West Africa. What we've decided to take a view is that's not a region where we want to operate, because we do not want to be selling our beans to the buying boards. We want to be free to sell our beans to anywhere in the world, which is why we settled on Latin America, specifically Peru. In Peru, it's a vibrant industry. I mean, again, cacao is an indigenous tree species to Peru. There's other people planting, there's scientific know-how, there's field know-how. There's other people doing large-scale projects, but none of them doing in the shape and fashion that we are as a publicly traded company.
The other question is, why do you come to London to list? I think you've got a view to list in Lima as well, haven't you, later on next year, is that right?
Absolutely. We're now moving ahead with our Lima application. We do expect to be quoted in Lima sometime in the first half of next year. We think there's a very strong base of retail and institutional demand there. But the reason why in London is we had a very good experience here. We built up a similar plantation company in the palm oil industry. The ticker was Palm. We listed that company in 2009 at 75 pence. We exited last month, a full exit for all shareholders, at 220 pence per share. So we generated for our IPO investors a 24% IRR over a 5-year period, roughly 3x on their capital. And this was despite a very bad commodity cycle. Vegetable oil prices have been falling for 4 years now. So despite a very negative commodity cycle, we generated an excellent return for our IPO shareholders.
And is it roughly the same sort of group of management that led that company to that success that's come over to United Cacao?
Yes, myself and a few others, yes.
Right. Whereabouts are you going to be doing, what are you going to be doing now? What's the plan from here on in? You've got this money,
yes.
You're going to pump it back into the business.
Absolutely.
Where do you go and what do you use that money for precisely?
It's execution. Right now we have over 400 people on site living at the plantation. We have almost 30 heavy pieces of equipment operating, in some cases 24 hours a day. This is a block and tackling business. Every day there's objectives on what need to be achieved. We're planting now in excess of 100 hectares a month. I think this is probably the most rapid cacao planting going on anywhere on earth by a company. So it's really just execution and plant the land, because with the planted resource, when those trees are in the ground, they will last for 30 to 40 years. So this is, I would argue, an annuity stream. All the hard work is though now. We have to get the land planted, so that's the priority.
Will you need more money?
Right now, we're fully financed up to 2,000 hectares. We've had, because of this process, some reverse inquiry from local banks. Right now, there's no debt in the business, and it's freehold land. So we might put a little bit of leverage to complete the planting of the project up to 3,250 hectares. But with these IPO proceeds, we're fully financed to 2,000 hectares, and that's with no debt, no leverage.
What's the process involved from planting a bean to getting the plant, to getting the beans off that new plant?
Okay.
How long does that take?
All right, first you start with a germinated seed. So we're using what's called CCN51 material. They don't have it in Africa, they don't have it in Asia. It is in the Ecuadorian and Peruvian Amazon. That is the super high, it's the Porsche of cacao. It's the best yielding, best crop, low disease. We know that small farmers are already getting over 3 tons of cacao with the CCN51 material. We start with a germinated seed, sourced locally. That goes into a poly bag, a planting bag. It's in a nursery for 4 months. In that nursery, there's a grafting where we graft on, we cut the seedling and we graft on a CCN51 budwood on top. That allows for a very strong tree. That's the best agricultural practice in the industry. Again, they don't do it in Asia, they don't do it in Africa, they do it in Peru. And then from there it goes in the field. And in the 25th month, you start to get a harvest of pods. And in those pods, you extract the beans, you dry them, and then this is what they look like. So we have our first revenue in the second half of next year, and we have rising revenue up until peak maturity in 2020, 2021.
And what about the cacao price? You were talking there about West Africa, which is where a lot of the beans come from.
Yes.
The restrictive practices in some parts there, and of course also the dreadful tragedy that is befalling people in that part of the world, not necessarily in the cacao-producing nations of Ebola. Where is all this going?
Well, if you look at the 5-year average price of cacao, it's roughly $2,800 a ton, US dollars a ton. Today we're trading at $2,900. So we're trading roughly where the 5-year average is. If you look at the 10-year average price of cacao, it's $2,400 a ton. So again, today's price of $2,900 is not really a big difference from the 10-year average. So prices, whilst volatile, from an average perspective, have been, I would argue, quite stable. So I would argue in the price today, there is no Ebola premium, there's no scarcity premium. It's simply the market indications of how it has been in the past are being projected going forward.
One final question is, you've been quoted as saying you want to change the confectionery industry.
Yeah.
This is obviously small beginnings, but where do you want to take United Cacao?
There's a huge opportunity to give the customer, and when I mean customer, the high street customer, what they want. And what they want, I believe, is to know where their beans are from, that they're produced in an environmentally responsible, ethical fashion. And I think that's something that transparency the industry doesn't have. And that's what we want to bring to the industry. And we want to be a supplier of large-scale, high-quality product, fully traceable, sustainable, ethically produced. So we think that's where the market is going, and we think that's what the big grinding companies and big buyers ultimately want, but they're not getting it today. So I think you're absolutely right. We're a small company, but I think over the next couple of years that will change tremendously.
And of course all this goes hand in hand with engaging with the local community as well. What sort of support are you getting from central government and local government in Peru?
Well, I guess Peru is a very pro-business place, so they sort of, frankly, leave you alone. I think a couple of things. We do benefit from what's called the law on the Peruvian Amazon, which is a tax-free zone until 2048. So there's no corporate income tax, no export tax of any kind. So it's a quite unique circumstance where we operate. So cacao is tax-free in Peru. With respect to the communities, what's important to know, we have freehold land. So in Peru, again, this is very different than Asia, this is very different than Africa, where you have the concept of community right land or communal ownership of land. That doesn't exist in Peru. Everybody owns their own land. So this makes for a much easier relationship with the community. So the community is very happy to have us there because we provide jobs. Remember, this is an area that suffers from horrific poverty. No jobs available at all. We've now created 400 permanent jobs in the area. We buy our supplies locally from the community. We obviously have a very strong community engagement, school, sports initiatives, medical programs. But the idea here is not to give handouts. It's about that we both grow together, that we plant cacao and they plant cacao as well. So we're having a microfinance program that we've started. We think that can be a big driver of revenues for us in the next several years. In fact, we could double our revenues through the microfinance program.
With an opportunity for investors as well at the same time in London.
Absolutely.
Well, look, Dennis, it's a pleasure, and thanks indeed for joining us and taking us through this the process, and good luck with the plantations.
Great. Thank you very much.
That's Dennis Melker. He's the Chief Executive, Chairman and Founder of United Cacao.